Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me live from the market site in Times Square, New York City, we have Phil Mackintosh, chief economist at Nasdaq, and we are going to talk about if the markets have it right when it comes to these COVID variants and, of course, inflation. And Phil, we've seen the uncertainty return to the markets and just how sensitive this market is to Omicron headlines and inflation.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster, hasn't it, the
Yes.
last week or so. We take off a few days for Thanksgiving and suddenly the markets are up and down, up and down. But there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of news coming out of inflation, jobs, really strong economy. Looks like it's overheating. Even Powell yesterday is like, we might be wrong on inflation and we need to get rid of the transitory word. And then in the middle of all that, we get new news on COVID, which most investors, I think, had kind of figured out that wasn't going to be a factor for the rest of the year, but it is.
Right, and it's so interesting because the sell-off was relatively small when you look at it on a larger basis, and it kind of indicates that the market expects some sort of antivirals or vaccines, or we're going to figure out how to live with it. Do you think the market has it right on this one?
We don't know yet, and I think that's one of the things that's clear is there is so much uncertainty. We know this from COVID. It's going to take 2 or 3 weeks to see what happens with the cases, how severe they are. It's going to take 2 or 3 more weeks to know whether there's mortality that comes off that. But the anecdotal evidence at the moment is it's really contagious. If you look at the spike that we saw in South African cases, which had almost gone to 0 after Delta, really rapid spike, makes it look like it's pretty contagious. But then we don't know yet how deadly it is, how much it's going to hospitalize people. It's possibly a milder case of COVID, in which case, to your point, we've got a lot more drugs now to treat it, a lot more vaccinated people. That should at least minimize, if not stop, people from catching it as badly. And we might be able to get through this because we've learned pretty well how to deal with COVID, mask up, do sensible things.
Right, and even without Omicron, the recent inflation really was the opening door for what we saw in the bond market activity. And to your point, Powell said the word transitory just needs to be struck from the conversation. And I don't remember which senator it was. I can't cite the person. But they had said to Powell, at the end of the day, from the moment we're born, everything is transitory technically.
Wow.
So,
I mean, the reality is he was really hoping that a lot of the inflation that we've been seeing, I mean, 30-year highs in inflation, was because of airline prices going back up and hotel prices going back up and cars being expensive because of the chip shortages, but that would go away. And all of a sudden we'd be back to 1 or 2% inflation and interest rates don't have to go up too much. The problem with having inflation at 4 and 5% is interest rates might have to go up a lot. And that is a big headwind for stocks. It's a big problem for anyone trying to borrow money, and it's probably going to slow the economy down. So the fact that the Fed is now getting a little bit more ahead of this is actually a good thing for bonds because there's less risk that we run late on interest rate rises and things have got too far ahead of us.
well, Phil, you spent a good time of your day looking at market structure. What have you seen in terms of trading volume?
I mean, whenever we get volatility, you get a lot of trading. So yesterday was the second busiest day we've had in the last 6 months. And that's always how it works. There's a lot of price discovery, a lot of uncertainty means people don't know, spreads widen, stocks trade more, ETFs trade more, futures trade more as people try to work out what the right price is. To your point, what is the right price for this COVID uncertainty?
All right, Phil, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq.